Hello, here we are on notes, variables on both sides. Now, the steps that I have listed here are really, this is going to be the most complicated equation that we have to deal with. So we're not really there yet. We're more at this step or this step. So I don't want anyone to get panicked with that example just there, but that is a complete example that goes through and describes how you would actually solve that equation. So we're going to go through and solve the following equations, and it says for us to show all our work. Now, when you have 7x and you have a negative 2x on the opposite side, remember they are still like terms, so you can combine those together and treat them just as if you had something like this. If you guys had this on your paper, this would be the same thing. You would subtract 63 from both sides. But because they don't have two constants and they actually have two variables and coefficients, you're just going to say what is the opposite of a negative 2x, and you're going to add 2x to both sides. Okay? So just bear with me here. It's just like combining like terms, just on different sides. So this cancels out. If you have negative 2x plus 2x, that gives you 0. You're left with 9x equals 63, and then divide both sides by 9, and you've isolated the variable to now get 7. You can check these, and you can do more of an informal check, because again, like I said, the great thing about equations is you can check to make sure that you are right. So your informal check is just rewriting your problem again and looking at it and saying, okay, well, 7 times 7, that's going to give me 49, and 2 times 7, that's going to give me 63 minus 14, and is 63 minus 14 going to give me 49? Yes, so I know I checked it out. So if you want to just use your calculator to do your check, there's nothing wrong with that. So number 2 is slightly different than number 1, because now I have 3x and 4x on the same side of the equation, and then I have my plus 2x on the opposite side. So how you're going to look at this is you are going to first combine together what is on the left side as it tells you to, exactly as it tells you to. So you've got 3x plus 4x, which is a total of 7x. You don't subtract those because you're doing opposite operations, but since they're on the same side together, it's like you're completely ignoring the 10 plus 2x. But now, since I can't simplify any more on the left, I'm going to simplify on the right, which is going to give me 10 plus 2x, which is now almost identical to what I had in number 1. Instead of negative 2x, it says plus 2x, so I'm going to do the inverse operation. This is applying the subtraction property of equality, because I'm equally subtracting 2x from both sides. And that will leave me with 5x equals 10, and then I divide both sides by 5, and I will get x equals 2. Okay? I'm going to do one more with you, and then I'm going to have you guys do the next 3 on your own. So number 3, again, I've got negative 2c and a positive c together on the left side. So I'm going to combine those together first, exactly as it tells me to. So I will have negative 2c plus 7c to give me 5c. Then I have 5c equals 28 plus c. I will subtract a c from both sides, and if you want to over here add that coefficient of a 1 to remind yourself that you are doing 5 minus 1 to give you 4c, you'll have 4c equals 28. I want you to notice I'm bringing the 28 down, and I am putting my equal sign right across from the 4c. I divide both sides by 4, and I will now get c equals 7. Okay, and again, you can do your check here to make sure that you have the right answer. But now I'm going to let you guys go on and try 4, 5, and 6. Go ahead and pause the video. Okay, so I had you try 4, 5, and 6 on your own. I have completed 4 and 5, so you can go ahead and check those answers. And then I've left number 6 for me to work through with you, just because I know that some people are probably looking at this and might have not be quite sure if they got the right answer. So when you have 7r plus 10 equals 3r plus 50, you notice that you have both a variable on both sides, and you also now have a constant on both sides. So some people get nervous as to where to start. Do I subtract 7r? Do I subtract 10 from both sides? Do I subtract the 3r? Do I subtract 50? And the answer to that question is, you can do any one of those things that I just said, and you will get the right answer. The one that I would suggest, though, when you think to yourself, what would Mrs. Beam do? What I do is I look at my coefficients. So I'm going to look at the variable and the coefficients. And I'm going to look to find the smaller coefficient. So I see that 7 and 3. 3 is obviously the smaller coefficient, so I'm going to subtract 3r from both sides. When I subtract the 3r from both sides, notice I am writing it underneath the like term. So I'm not writing 3r underneath the 10. I wrote it right underneath the 7r. 7r minus 3r will give me 4r, and then plus 10, and over here I'm left with 50. So I'll move this up so you can see that. So this is now just a regular two-step equation. So the reason I moved the smaller variable, the way to subtract the smaller variable, is because I ended up with a positive coefficient on my variable. So now I will just subtract 10 from both sides. This will leave me with 4r equals 40, and I will divide by 4 to get r equals 10. Okay? So number 7 and number 8 are also very similar to this. I'm going to practice number 8 with you, and then again have you try number 7 on your own. So they're just adding yet another step here. They have 2d plus 20 plus 16 equals negative 3d minus 24. So instead of having variables, having a d on the left side, having 2 and 2 d's on the right side, I have 2 constants that are like terms that I can also combine those together first. So I'm not doing anything with that 2d, and I'm now going to do 20 plus 16 because they're together on one side of the equation. You perform the exact operation that's between them. So 20 plus 16 is going to give me 36. Then I bring down the negative 3d minus 54. And again, this one I have a 2d plus 36 equals negative 3d minus 54. Again, what would Mrs. Beam do? I would start with looking at my variables and coefficients. I am going to move the smaller variable, and this time the smaller variable is the negative 3. So I'm going to add 3d to both sides. Oops, put plus sign there. Add 3d. So I have 2d plus 3d to give me 5d plus 36. The 3d, negative 3d cancels out over here, and then I've got the negative 54. You need to make sure you bring down a negative 54. Now this is kind of the first time we're really getting our negatives involved here. I'm going to subtract 36 from both sides, and I have left with 5d, and now I have negative 54 minus 36. It's 54 bad guys and it's 36 bad guys. They combine forces and they stay bad to give me negative 91. And some of you might be saying, oh no, 91's not divisible by 5, and that's okay. There's no rule that says you have to get an integer when you are dividing it or when you're solving equations. So we're just left with negative 91 divided by 5, and that's an improper fraction that we're going to change to a mixed number right now. And so 5 goes into 91 18 times, because 18 times 5 will give me 90. And then left over is 1, so it's 18 and 1/5. But don't forget, you had a negative divided by a positive, so your answer will be negative 18 and 1/5. You have to be very careful with your negatives here. So go ahead and try number 7. All right. So I first combined 8y minus 3y to get positive 5y. Then I moved the smaller coefficient by subtracting 4y from both sides. That leaves me with 20 equals y plus 9. Subtract 9 to get an answer of y equals 11, or 11 equals y. Just leave it like this. You don't have to change the order between these two. You can just, it doesn't have to switch. Just leave it like 11 equals y. And then now, of course, we're going to get to writing equations and then solving them. So question number 2, says a town's population is 14,000, and it is increasing by 160 people every year. A nearby town has a population of 24,000, and it's decreasing by 200 people every year. In about how many years will the populations of the towns be equal? So the unknown is it about how many years. So we're setting up our let statement to say that whatever letter you want to use, I'm looking for the number of years, so I'm going to use y. Let y be the number of years. And they're really asking, when will the populations of the towns be equal? So you want to have an expression that represents the first town and an expression that represents the second town. So the first town's expression is that it has 14,000 people, and it's increasing by 160 people every year. Every year means that there's a constant rate, the constant proportionality, is that it's increasing by 160, so it's 160 times y. Then we're saying that when is that going to be equal? So I'm putting my equal sign. And then the other town has a population of 24,000 currently, but they are decreasing their population by 200 every year. So that's going to be minus 200y. So I have constants on both sides, and I have variables and coefficients on both sides. So my decision is going to, again, move the smaller variable. So I'm going to actually add 200y, because when I add 200y, I end up getting a positive coefficient on the right side. So that will give me 14,000 plus 360y equals 24,000. Then I will subtract 14,000. Which leaves me with 360y equals 10,000. Divide both sides by 360. Then I don't get a whole number, which is fine, and it's going to give me approximately 27 and 8/10 years, or if you wanted to say 28 years, that would be fine. Okay, because the question says in about how many. So in about how many, I would probably round that up to say 28. All right, so I'm going to ask you guys to go ahead, and I know it says example number 3, but I'm going to ask you to go ahead and try number 3, and then I'll resume the video. Okay, so I again have my let statement of y is the number of years. I wrote 2 expressions to represent the rate that the plants are growing, and then set those 2 equal to each other, solved for y, and got 5 years. Okay, please be sure to ask any questions that you have tomorrow. Have a good day.